Okay, so welcome guys to another session of cloud performance engineering in DevOps. So yesterday, like the last two sessions, right? We just went in one of the first sessions. We went over the demo, and in the yesterday we just went over few of the AWS services. I just gave a glimpse of how we're gonna cover, what we're gonna cover. Today I'm going to be more detailed that what you actually be getting or how we will be going about each of the topics, right? So let's start with that course and that we have, and let's try to. So on the first topic, as we all know that it's AWS, right? So we're going to start with AWS, and I'm gonna. So okay, so may I know like how many of you are comfortable with Linux? So let's say just you can be honest. So let's say between 1 to 10 scale, 10 being quite comfortable, and one being not comfortable or new. So can you rate yourself in the just 1 to 10 so that I can get an understanding so that I can take up the first topic to take up Linux or AWS cloud first. If you can just help me. Okay, sure, Amarnath. Okay, 8 is 5. Okay. Yeah, if everyone can respond, I would highly appreciate that. I do whenever I take up session, I do I just keep in mind that my audience doesn't know much of it. So that's what I take up. But if everyone would be comfortable, I would be taking up mostly talking about the self scripting. So if not, I'll start from basics. Okay, sure. Out of uh, 6 people, four have replied. Okay, good. So I think I need to get started from scratch, right? So once the course enrollment, depending on how much comfortable we are, we'll take up the thing. Okay, so what we're gonna do? So we're gonna take up the AWS cloud. Looking at not everyone is like everyone is at some level. So I'm gonna give the recorded session on Linux. But anyway, we'll cover that. It's not like I'm not covering up. I'm going to start with AWS Cloud. Okay. And I'll be giving you the recorded sessions, my own recordings. Okay. Okay, Narendra, no idea about Linux. Okay, sure. And when we are completing AWS, talking about AWS, right? So meanwhile, you can go over Linux, right? Or if you guys say that no, you want to get started with Linux when we finalize our batch, right? So we can take up that as well. So as per more number of people how they're opting, we'll go about that. Okay. So for each of the topics, I'm gonna say so. This is about the last batch, which was started on April in April, and we that's what I'm gonna share with you. So on the cloud computing, I'm gonna share quite PPTs, which gonna be quite reference for you to understand how we're gonna take up things, right? So today I'm gonna give you a glimpse of how we're gonna take up things here. So this cloud it will take around, I can definitely say 3 weeks because we cover a lot of stuff here, right? Starting from very basics. So around 2 to 3 weeks will be engaged completely into cloud part, and it all starts from very basics. What is understanding of a data center, and slowly we'll ramp up understanding of what all different uh, the AWS, the global presence, global infrastructure. We'll talk about different services like IAM. We'll talk about billing, right? We'll talk about security group. We'll talk about different ports, like the already standard ports that we have. We'll talk about EC2 instance. We'll talk about storage services, EBS, EFS, and S3. We'll talk about that. Then we'll talk about VPC, virtual private cloud, how networking works, how to make sure that you have a secure network solution, right? That's very important. And then we'll talk about load balancing. We'll talk about auto scaling group, right? So these are all the parts which that's how I go about, right? So we'll talk about load balancing. We'll talk about auto scaling group, right? So that's how we're gonna take up things, right? And everything will be here. We'll talk about AMI, what is AMI, or different things, right? Then we'll talk about serverless services, their Lambda and other things. So we'll talk about that. So it's going to take around 2 to 3 weeks of cloud, right? So that's what about cloud. You can see this. We have approximately a lot, 150 slides, right? 160, yeah, 170. Yeah. So quite a good thing to refer. Okay, then like as I started, like we can start with a Linux command line as well, right? We'll give you like the handout, this kind of a thing, and I'll take up from very basics. What is Linux, Debian family, Fedora, like what is CentOS family, what type of command you run, basics. So the idea is to get you comfortable as you are with Windows, right? So how do you create a directory, remove a directory, copy a file, search a text in a file, right? Or if you have, let's say, 100 files, how can you replace one specific word in all the 100 files, right? Or if you want to find one particular file in wherever you are, like in a C drive, like just see, always the idea would be think what you do in Windows, and we're gonna do the same thing in Linux. And the more you think, the better you will be. So that's how you'll be comfortable. So you should think, okay, so you can do this in Windows. So let's try to understand how can we do the same thing in Linux, right? So that's what the target would be, and that's what the approach would be to get you comfortable. You should not feel it's a Linux, just an operating system, right? Nothing else. And we'll understand how. And it's all about commands. Linux is not. We don't have a graphical user interface like how we have for Windows. So it's all about a command. So we'll know, we'll understand. So we have a quite exhaustive commands here, right? And you can just see that all those things which I'm showing you. So we'll go over these things, right? And we'll talk after that. At last, we'll talk about shell scripting. That's very important, right? The commands like top, mpstat, vmstat, iostat, free-h, df-h, right? These lsoft, these commands are very important from a performance point of view, or from a network troubleshooting network point of view. You should be knowing about commands like ping command or trace route command, right? Right, those things we'll talk about that. Dig command, so netstat command, right? We'll talk about these things. We'll talk about how do you zip a file, right? In Windows, you know how to 7G. If you have a 7G or zip, you can do that. But how can you do the same thing in Linux? It's all about command. The star command, just follow that, give that, and it will be just. Yes, Narendra, that's right. I'll be giving you all these documents. Read access. Yes, you'll be giving that. Everyone. Lifetime, right? So you can see this the way I have given. If you look at the last batch, right? I have, if I could just show you the list of people. So I have assigned all these access to all the people, those who enroll in the last batch. You can see this. All these people enrolled in the last batch, and I've given them access. It's the same thing. I'm gonna do that with this batch. Every batch, whichever batch I do the same thing, right? So all the batches. So okay, so that's about Linux, right? That's the approach would be. And at last we'll talk about shell scripting. Like let's say I'm gonna ask you this question, okay? Let's say you are running a performance test, and let's say you don't have any APM tool or infrastructure monitoring tool. Let's say that, but someone asked you that no, you need to capture CPU, memory, disk, right, at the process level also. But at the process level, at the see in the OS you have the process also, right? In Windows, you have the process, right? I can go to task manager and I can see what all processes are running, right, and how much memory it is taking, how much CPU it is taking. I can capture that also. So the CPU, the infrastructure, the host, as well as the process, how much process is consuming. So I can take the same detail for the Linux operating system also. Whatever process, let's say the Java process is running, I can take that, right? So we'll write a shell scripting around let's say if you do not have any monitoring tool, so I can write a shell script which will capture the all the CPU, memory, disk, process at the host level, at the process level, everything. And for, let's say, whatever test duration you run a performance test, let's say 1 hour, 2 hour, it will keep on collecting the data every 5 seconds or 10 seconds. You can configure that, and you will get that in a CSV format. And once you have the CSV format, you can make use of Excel and plot some graphs, right? So we'll talk about that. Let's say if you do not have any such tool, how can you get the metrics from the operating system? Because operating system, right, you know that in Windows also you can capture, right? I hope everyone is aware of the Windows. How do we do that, right? Uh, so same thing we'll do for the Linux as well. So how can we capture those details, right? You have everything here, right? So we'll do the shell scripting part as well. So that's about the Linux operating system, right? And then we'll talk about, as the course would progress, we'll talk about microservices. We'll talk about containers. We'll talk about Docker, right? So that's what the course would progress. The third topic would be the container, the Docker, right? The container orchestration engine. So we're going to talk about that. For that also we have, this is the container engine. So we'll talk about Docker here. How do we work with Docker, right? Why do we need to install container engine on a VM? Why do we do that? Why do we need containers? How can we create containers? How can we host microservices on the containers, right? And once you install it, what is the performance? How can I capture the performance metrics or the resource utilization take those microservices or containers are consuming? The footprints, right? The footprints of all those containers in a VM, we can capture that. We're gonna understand Docker lifecycle, right? We're gonna understand uh, different command Docker operations that we have. Docker, a lot of commands you're gonna share Docker. It's all about, so everything we're gonna do in Linux operating system. That's why you need to get comfortable with Linux. So if everyone understands, if let's say when the batch is formed, and if everyone tells like they need to get started with Linux, so we'll start with that, and right, and then we'll talk about AWS next topic that we can change that as per how we are comfortable, right? Then we create containers using Docker, but how can we create multiple containers in one time? So we'll talk Docker Compose. We'll make use of Docker Compose to spin up multiple containers in YAML file. Then we'll talk about, very important, where do we check logs? How do we check different system metrics, stats, all the CPU memory, right? How can we allocate a specific CPU or memory to a particular container? We'll talk about these things from a performance point of view, right? Very important. So we'll talk about this container engine Docker. Then we'll talk about, after that we'll move into Kubernetes, right? So we'll talk about container orchestration engine. So Kubernetes is going to take long. This container engine will take around 4 or 5 days, right? This Linux command line will take 4 or 5 days. Cloud is going to take around 2 to 3 weeks, right? So 10, 12 days, right? Then container orchestration engine would take around 7 to 8 days. Got quite exhaustive. I need to start from scratch. People are new to Kubernetes, right? So we'll start with architecture, and everything is hands-on, okay, guys. So no theoretical. Obviously, theory is important. Before I provide you hands-on, I need to give some theoretical knowledge as well, right? So start with architecture, and then we'll understand different objects, Kubernetes objects that we have, right? How do we create cluster? How do we create different Kubernetes objects? Or horizontal pod autoscaler, cluster autoscaler. So you can see the number of slides here. A lot of concepts is there in Kubernetes. It's quite a big subject. Would be around 100, 10 pages. Yeah. So it will take around 8 to 9 days, right? It will take definitely, right? Kubernetes, container orchestration engine. And once it is done, we'll talk about Jenkins, CI/CD pipeline, DevOps. We'll talk about what is the importance of DevOps in current world. Why DevOps? started with agile, started with waterfall, it came agile after that. Then why we're talking about DevOps? What is the need now? What is the significance, right? Uh, so yeah, we'll talk about CI, continuous integration, right? And that's what we'll talk about. Continuous performance testing. How do we create a CI/CD pipeline? What is the importance of creating pipeline? Once you have the pipeline, automated pipeline, it's all about whenever a developer uploads the code to GitHub, all the jobs would get automatically scheduled. Building the code, right? After that, functional testing, automation testing, post that performance testing. You can see this particular slide, Jmeter job. You can see we're gonna create a similar kind of a job. This is a snapshot taken from a CI/CD pipeline, actual pipeline. I'm taking a screenshot. And once everything is successful, I'm gonna push the code to production. You're gonna see a demo of how do we create CI/CD pipeline, how do we automatically trigger the emails, right? Once a job fails, the person should get notified, right? So automatic triggering of the so first of all automatic triggering of the pipeline based on a GitHub, right? And whenever any change happens to the GitHub, let's say the developer uploads the code to GitHub source code repository, right? So automatically this pipeline should trigger, and if every job is successful, then only the code will be pushed to production, and there is no manual activity. That's what the DevOps brings to the table, the automation. And in cloud and DevOps, just they're the best combination, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. That, right? We're going to talk about how it is in AWS. What are different services that have CI/CD pipeline? We have a code pipeline. We have services like code pipeline, code commit, which is very much similar to what we have GitHub or the Jenkins or the Maven, right? We in uh, cloud also, we in AWS we have services for that, managed services for the CI/CD pipeline. So we'll take the approach, we'll understand third party approach as well, without AWS, right? And we'll talk about, get an understanding of how in AWS things work, right? We'll talk about that as well. And we have a lot of services, and everyone would have this account created on the very first day, maybe on Monday. We'll have this account created, right? So Monday we're gonna finalize our batch. So that's what Monday we'll start with the actual sessions. Okay. So like as I was mentioning about DevOps, right? So we have code commit. So like we have GitHub, like it's a third party. GitHub is where you can also store the codes. In AWS, we have something called code commit. So it's like a GitHub repository as well, right? In Jenkins, you can install some plugin and you can enhance the capability of Jenkins. You can have some build tool like Maven. Here we have service like code build, right? You can make use of this code build to build the code, test the unit test cases, right? And again, we have a pipeline, code pipeline as well. So we'll make use of this service in AWS to create DevOps pipeline, code pipeline. Right? And then we'll understand how do we deploy things using cloud formation. We're gonna be using Beanstalk. And we'll get an understanding of that as well. Cloud formation is there. We'll see that. So don't get overwhelmed whatever I'm saying. So just get excited that we're gonna cover so much. Okay, that's what I'm intending. Okay, so that's what we're gonna cover and how we're gonna plan. Any questions uh, before I start something?
Hi, Roshan.
Yeah, hi. Please, yeah.
GitHub, GitHub and Jmeter thing.
Yeah.
So if we can have this execution planned in GitHub, why exactly we should use Jenkins there? I have seen Jmeter integration with Jenkins.
Mm.
So what exactly is the difference between a GitHub action and a Jenkins trigger?
GitHub is a repository. You can store something. Okay, GitHub is a source code repository. We call it GitHub or Big Bucket. Okay, these are the repository. You can basically host your code here. So central repository where, like let's say you have 10 developers and all the developers are working in a project, right? And you don't like them to save their code changes, whatever update they may be fixing the bug or doing some enhancement or code changes, whatever. You want them to upload to a central location, everyone, like all 10 of them, right? And it's not like you don't want to them to do rework, right? If a person one has updated something, you want person two to take the updated code, right? So for that we use GitHub. It's a repository. Okay. Jenkins is a CI tool, continuous integration tool, right? So you can use Jenkins to perform the automation, right? So it will delegate the task first of all, and you can increase the capability of Jenkins using installing some plugins. Like if you want to build the code, let's say that. So code, let's say the developer uploaded the code to GitHub. Okay, and let's say you have the pipeline. You can create the pipeline in Jenkins. Jenkins is a CI tool, so you should understand what is Jenkins. Jenkins is nothing but a CI tool. It is a continuous integration tool. In DevOps lifecycle, you have multiple lifecycle. Okay, multiple phases are there in a DevOps lifecycle. And when you look at a DevOps lifecycle, you have continuous integration is one of the phases in DevOps. Okay, continuous development, continuous testing, continuous integration, deployment, and monitoring. These are the DevOps lifecycle. And Jenkins we use so that you have one platform. Okay, one platform where things can be managed. So I will have Jenkins. I will have my worker nodes. Let's say I have a worker node to deploy to testing environment, right? Or to deploy my production environment or to run my Jmeter job. I need these different servers, and Jenkins will integrate with all these components, right? And get the work done. The CI/CD pipeline. You see, there has to be someone who can regulate this activity, the CI/CD pipeline, and Jenkins is that regulator, right? Is a CI tool. So Jenkins is gonna keep on checking. Okay, something has got updated to my GitHub repository. Some developer must have pushed something. Then only the GitHub repository would get updated. So as soon as it does that, Jenkins would keep on polling. Okay, it is something has been changed. Yes, no. Keep on polling every uh, regular interval. And once the Jenkins senses that something has been uploaded, it will ask some other server to perform this activity. Once this activity is done, it will ask another server to perform this activity. Once this task is done successfully, Jenkins will ask this server to perform some activity. So it's a continuous integration tool. So Jenkins is the integrator which will help you perform the CI/CD pipeline. Because CI/CD pipeline happens at the organization level. I'm just showing you 4 jobs, but there are basically 10 to 12 jobs in any organization. There could be functional testing, automation testing should happen before performance testing. After performance testing, security testing, UAT testing. Right? I'm just skipping those parts. I've not shown you here just to keep it simple. CI/CD pipeline, just to give you a feel of a CI/CD pipeline. But there could be a lot of jobs, means tasks, a lot of tasks. So the idea is to automate all the stuff, right? Once the developer uploads the code, and just think how cool it is. So once the developer uploads the code, everything would get automated. Functional testing would happen. Code, first of all, the code would get built. The unit test cases would get executed. And let's say if the code broke, like if the code is not, the build is not successful, the developer would get a notification that boss, whatever the code you have written, uploaded, it has not worked. To work on your code with the build log, everything attached. This will send the automatic notification to the developer that your code has broken into this phase. We cannot proceed with the next phase. So work on the code. So the developer will get notification again. the developer would fix that issue and upload the code again. Same process will start happen. So you can do multiple releases and that too automated fashion. Human human errors, chances of getting human errors is very less in CI/CD pipeline, and and the organization can focus primarily on the development part, what that actually matters, right? Getting the conversation, having the problem with the conversation, or getting the deployment. Uh, Earlier, that was the case with Agile, right? Um, Developer were testing in one environment, testers were testing in another environment. There were some plugins, it was a mismatch. You must have seen it is not any bug, right? Let's say any tester, something missed on the configuration. So you don't want that kind of a manual activity. You want everything to be automated. You don't want to have this kind of things floating across all the environment that the code would be deployed, right? And Jenkins is what going to regulate all these activities. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Roshan. It's
Sure.
clear now.
Sure. Any more questions?
Hi, Roshan.
Hi. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are here discussing about that AWS cloud provider, right? So there are multiple cloud provider, right? Microsoft Azure is
That's
one
right.
of them.
Yeah, that's right.
So whatever the concept we are covering for AWS, will it be applicable same to Microsoft Azure?
The concept part, see, the idea of cloud is same, right? You want the server, right? You want the storage, you want the databases, right? You want the security. The use case is same. The UI, the name would be different. I'll give you a link, okay? So let's say I have a link. Let me, okay. So I'm gonna just tell you one how I take up things. See, it's not possible for anyone to learn everything. So you get started with one. Okay. So let's say I have EC2. For the same EC2, you have a similar service called Azure Virtual Machine. That's what it is.
Okay.
In the Google, we have a similar service called Compute Engine. So if you have like Google, if I open GCP console, let's say that this is the GCP console I'm just opening. So if I go to virtual machine, I can find a service called virtual machine. Okay. If I just view all products, I have some access. I think I have not accessed in quite some time. So if I go to virtual machine, I can do the same thing what I'm doing through EC2. Right? So the look and feel would change, the UI would change, but the core functionality of any cloud service provider remains the same. Right? That's the idea. And you should know what other in EC2 we call it AWS, Azure, GCP, IBM calls it this, Oracle tells it, Alibaba, who I so just need to know one, start with one, and that's how you ramp up on others wherever you need the. So I work on multiple cloud service providers, but I started with one, right? Today I'm working on Azure and GCP as well, but it's not like it was very difficult for me to get the transition done. So you start with one and then you transition, right? And it's easy to scale up once you know one.
So which one is better, AWS or Azure?
Better and all, I see it all depends on, see, market share. I can talk about it. See, market share, AWS was launched in 2008. So if you work in AWS, you can achieve performance. You can work in Azure, you can achieve performance. See, it's all about this. See, everyone is having the same. Okay, if I ask you which one is LoadRunner or Jmeter, do you have any answer? Right. So one is open
Uh,
source. Like one is open.
yeah.
You can do both, or Gatling. Let's say that Gatling, right? So
Yeah.
you can just click Jmeter or Gatling. Which one is better? So we can discuss about that, right? Both are getting the work
Mhm.
done, right? So everyone is setting up this. Everyone is having the data center, the servers. Either it is AWS or Azure or GCP. Everyone is busy setting up the data center, right? And they are enabling us to use them, right? You can achieve performance everywhere. People are deploying. See, when I say AWS is the market leader, it doesn't mean Azure is in loss or GCP is in loss. No, they are they're in huge profit, right? The market leaders among this. So because they started quite early, 2008, AWS. So they have uh, this a whole of 5 years they are ahead of everyone. People know more about AWS. Most of the company use AWS, right? So 2008 AWS was launched. If you talk about Azure and GCP, they were launched around 2013-14, right? So 5 years ahead of the game AWS is, but all are doing well. So I have deployed my infrastructure in all the cloud service providers. So it's not like, yeah, so AWS is widely used. So the chances of you getting a job or because finding a job which using AWS would be more. That's how I can answer you. Yeah.
Okay. And cost-wise, both are like same.
Which one?
Like if we want to invest for some VM, so in Azure and AWS, both prices will be same.
No, no, there'll be some difference. So you can compare and all that. So how many? See, on the comparison part again, you want to understand there is something called, it's a huge topic cost. Okay, it's a huge topic cost. If you go for 3 year commitment, let's say that the cost would be much more cheaper. If you use it for a 6 month, the cost will be relatively higher, right, compared to 6 months, because when you use for a longer time, uh, you get a better discount, right? And all are competition like AWS, Azure, GCP, all are in competition, right? The prices are competitive. Like if anyone is giving you cheap, so obviously people would go there, right? So yeah,
Right, right,
all are in competition, so they have to be have the competitive pricing. So yeah. So you don't need to worry. You need to focus on where you want to work, right? The company, right? You need to focus on that. Even if someone is deploying in Azure, if you say that you have worked on AWS and if you can answer those questions, they would know that this guy or this girl can easily be ramped up on Azure or GCP if you know AWS. That's how things work. No, not everyone can know everything, right? So
right. Yes. Thank you.
sure. Again, so there's a one question in the chat: how do we monitor? So again, we have CloudWatch, as I was mentioning about, right? We have a CloudWatch in like in AWS, right? So similarly, you have a similar service, okay? In Azure, you have this log analytics, Azure portal, application insights. In Google, you have this. So they provide all these cloud service providers. They provide out of the box monitoring solution, infrastructure monitoring solution, log analysis. They provide that. So you can make use of this. Yeah. The name with user. I hope you got your answer.
And for this monitoring tools like logging and monitoring service, again, for that also we need to pay extra, right?
You have to pay. Yeah. It's just quite simple. If you're using the service they are providing, right? So if they are providing you this service, why would they give for free? Right? So they have opened a business to earn money, right? So that's how. So just think this way. If you're using their resource, they're gonna charge.
And if can we request for these monitoring services only during our load test?
No, 24/7. They're gonna charge you. Hey,
No, maybe my test runs for 4 hours. Can I request this service only for during that,
yeah, you
like
can.
maybe 5 hours?
Definitely you can. People do
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
For the load test, people do provision 50 servers to test the volume test. But after 4 hours, they just give them back the server. So you will only charge for the 4 hours. So whatever time you use the servers. So we'll talk about the pricing, how pricing works. It works only compute time. Yes. That's why people go with cloud. On-premise, you have to purchase all the servers, but in cloud, no, you don't need to purchase. You just got 50 servers, tested, gave them back. You will only charge for the time you have used it. That's all. Because you're not purchasing it, you're taking it for rent. That should be the thought process.
And in our course, are we going to discuss on these different kind of log monitoring tools available in AWS? Why we should use each of these?
We're going to talk CloudWatch, right? That's what we're going to talk about. CloudTrail is for the governance, right? X-Ray is mostly like a developer tool. So we're going to talk about CloudWatch, and we're going to talk about CloudWatch container insights. Once we talk about the Kubernetes, because to monitor the containers, we'll talk about container insights as well. We'll talk about CloudWatch and container insights, log insights. We'll talk about that. Yes. Let me just give you. We're going to talk about this. CloudWatch is there. Under the CloudWatch, you have we'll talk about logs. Where do we store logs? How do we create alarms? We'll talk about that because for auto scaling, alarms should get triggered. We'll talk about container insights. When you have containers, how do you monitor this? We have application monitoring. Right? We'll see these things. Yes. That's all like a infrastructure monitoring. It's CloudWatch. Any more questions?
Roshan, will it helps to monitor even for application level as well, or only whatever the applications are deployed? Whatever the applications deployed in the particular server, even we can monitor the application itself apart from the hardware resource utilization.
This CloudWatch is there for the infrastructure monitoring. Yeah, that's what I mentioned yesterday.
Only for infra only.
Yes, infra.
Not possible to monitor any, the code level or.
Again, for the code level, you have AWS X-Ray. You will have to instrument the code. Okay, so it's not like AWS is not developer friendly. If you're a developer, they're gonna give you services like X-Ray, where you need to instrument the code, right? And you can get the at this function is taking how much time at that. But at the process level, we don't have APM tools like the capabilities of APM tools like AppDynamics or Dynatrace. We don't have such a functionality. This is a developer tool, X-Ray. Yeah, you can increase the capability. It can provide you the profiling capabilities, but for that you have to instrument the code. You will have to add something in the code level. Then only it will give you data. I hope I answered your question. Yeah.
I think someone already asked some question regarding the monitoring. So I think first we need to know what is on-premise and on-cloud. So both are different, right? Both are cloud-based application, but on-premise means cloud application is deployed into our.
I'll talk. That's the first thing I'm going to talk about it. That's what the question which you asked clearly tells that you don't understand cloud. On-premise, I'll tell you one simple definition. You will never get out. On-premise and cloud infrastructure. At the infrastructure level, both are same. Both are nothing but a data center. Okay, both are nothing but a data center. Either you are on-premise or cloud. Just imagine a big building. Just give me 1 minute. I'll just take a sip of water. I'll be back. I'm back. See, the basic difference between on-premise and cloud, what is the difference? Both are same. From an infrastructure perspective, both are same. Both are using the same thing. Both having either your on-premise or cloud, you have the data center, right? You have a big infrastructure where all the server storage are hosted. On-premise means you own this. You have purchased all this hardware. On-premise means you means as a company, whatever. So you have purchased all the hardware. Cloud means someone else owns it. You are asking for, you are getting the server like a rent. You asked for few servers, you are paying rent for them. That's what the difference is. On-premise and cloud, nothing difference. So at the infrastructure level, don't get confused. It's a very simple thing. Both mean the same. On-premise, I own something, I have to purchase. If today on-premise, when I say I have today on-premise, means it's I own the data center. I'm using cloud. I don't own the data center, but I have the servers because I pay rent. And I can get more servers wherever I need. That's about the cloud. Yes, now your question, please.
Yeah, so like I think just now you told that in cloud there are some monitoring tools available during the load test, but if it is on-premise, like any monitoring tools are available, or do we need to create our own?
See, again, on-premise, you own it. You decide what do you want. You are owning, you have to purchase licensing, get it from HP Performance Manager, or get it some third party. Because you own the hardware. You should tell me how you are using it. You own it. You have the full control. Which third party you're gonna refer, you're gonna go with, right? You should know. These AWS guys have developed this data center. They have developed this CloudWatch. That's what they are offering you. You're able to understand this, right? That's what the difference, the definition part. If you're clear on the definition, these doubts will not come. Yes, I hope you understand things
Yes,
better.
thank you. Sure. Thank you, got it. But yeah, thanks.
Keep it simple. See, you have to purchase the licensing. Either you go with take any infrastructure monitoring tool. You have to invest the money there because you have invested in buying the servers, right? So you have to also purchase some licensing, infrastructure monitoring, whatever you want to use it. There are a lot of options. If you want to go with third party or some hypervisor also provides that infrastructure monitoring, you have to go and purchase these things. No one will go give it for free. You own this, you own it. So you have to decide what monitoring you're gonna set up. It's you who gonna decide because you own data center. Take this link and use any one of this. Set up. You can use Jabix, Prometheus. It's all open source. Prometheus, Grafana. You use it. Either you use it open source or license version. It's all your choice. Cloud, if you're using AWS is giving you this.
Okay, so are you going to provide the details, like how to monitor? Yeah, during the course.
That's what I was telling you, right? We'll talk
sorry,
about cloud.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Really appreciate. Yeah. Now I got full picture of it.
Perfect. Good to know. Any more questions? I think we're going to take up questions for 10 minutes. But I cannot start. Mostly I'm going to start with the course syllabus directly on Monday. So this is the best time to decide what you want to do. So if you have any questions for me, feel free. I'm going to answer you. Yeah. Anything, like if you have something struggling to want to know something more which is not out of this course, also I'm ready to answer. That's fine. Please go ahead. Feel free.
Yeah, Roshan. So I would like to know when we run this performance test, we get the report in a like result file is generated. But how can we send this report in a graphical way or better way to the management.
So are you first of all, I will ask you this question. Are you monitoring from CloudWatch, or are you monitoring just like that using some shell scripting, or you just how you're monitoring it?
I have a Azure instance,
Okay.
but I am not sure whether they already have some monitoring tool in place.
If you're
But
Azure, if you're in Azure, they have it. Every cloud service provider, they have a monitoring solution.
no, I meant like whether already in my they already have the license or the service purchased. So I need to check.
Nothing
So
like
during the
license.
Lotus,
Nothing like if you're in cloud, nothing like license. Whether you use it or not, Azure Monitor. Azure Monitor is gonna give you all the details, log, VM, container insights, everything that I'm talking about using the CloudWatch. Same thing Azure Monitor is gonna give you. You just need to enable this option. That's what. Okay. Now your question, please.
okay. So during my load test, what I monitor is just Grafana.
Okay.
And other than that, I just check the Jmeter logs,
Okay.
whatever errors are coming.
Okay.
But I never ran it in an auto test fashion. So now I am thinking of the JMX file is in the GitHub.
Okay.
I just need to trigger it on a weekly basis, not based on any commit or anything.
Okay.
So thought of having a GitHub action
Okay.
and schedule it on a weekly basis, run it. But the JTL raw file will be generated, but I'm thinking how we will be able to automatically generate a report and send, or
You have a performance plug. Are you using Jenkins?
not yet.
So, okay. So if you're planning, Jenkins has a performance testing plugin, performance plugin.
Okay.
If you, that's what I'm going to talk about this in our session as well. Okay.
Okay.
So if you look at let me just take you to that. So we have a performance plugin in Jenkins. So with Jmeter job, I'm going to install this plugin, and the role of this plugin is to read the JTL file, whatever the response time I'm getting, or P95, whatever, 95 percentile or 90th percentile, whatever I'm getting, it's going to compare with the last build, right? And it will give me whether the test, whether my test passed or failed. It's going to compare. I can have some plus minus, plus or minus 5% some noise, right? Based on that, I'm going to have this performance plugin decide, right, whether to pass the job or to fail the job. So this is the performance plugin I'm going to configure. So this is the performance plugin I'm talking about. So once I install the Jmeter, so we have a something called, where is that? Hold on. This is email configuration. So you can also get the notification done. Okay. Okay. So I have a performance plugin. I think I have not captured here. I should have captured. Okay. I have not captured it here. So we have a performance plugin. We install it. Okay. And we have let me just do performance plugin Jenkins. So if you just if you read about this, so this is what we're gonna compare your JTL file with the last JTL file, and it's gonna give you the report as well. Performance plugin in Jenkins. So this is what we do in Jenkins. So that's how this plugin helps you increase the capability of Jenkins, and you can also run the Jmeter job. And you can also send the build log, attach the build log, and you can send to the any distribution list. So automatically, whenever your test runs, whoever is in your distribution list will get the email. You can configure that as well.
Okay. The email can be configured also via Jenkins.
Exactly. So Jenkins
Okay.
is a Java-based tool. You can increase the
Mhm.
capability of Jenkins. That's what Jenkins, we use Jenkins. That's why we use Jenkins CI tool, and that's very popular uh, in Jenkins tool. We'll talk about this. So why do we use Jenkins? And right,
Yeah.
so a lot of
But
plugins.
better, I'm clear. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. Any more questions? We have 4 minutes. I think one question I can take it up before we wind up. Okay, so those who are joining for the first time, I'm gonna give them link. Okay, so go over this. Okay, I do see a question. We are using Dynatrace and our application is in Azure. How can we monitor all resources using load test? You have Dynatrace. What you are asking me how to monitor using Dynatrace? You can install Dynatrace in Azure. You can configure it. Uh, are you looking for any answer for me? Because you have already given me, you have already told that you have a Dynatrace. The user, I cannot see your name. What is the purpose of ingesting JSON? First of all, think that. What is the purpose of what? Why are we ingesting JSON? Question. Why are you doing that? What is the purpose? So Dynatrace I'm not going to cover in this syllabus. Okay, this course curriculum. But yeah, just to answer your question, just I'm asking, why do you want to ingest JSON? What does JSON has? It has some data or what it has? How to create the dashboard? Cost server names are changing. Are you asking how to create a dashboard in Dynatrace? You can speak. Okay. I cannot show you right now. Dynatrace, I don't have it, right? So yeah, that would be out of scope of this syllabus anyway. But Dynatrace has full. You just Google it, right? Just Google it, and you will get the all walkthrough of how do you create dashboard. Right? So it must be popular thing. That's the best part of Dynatrace, that you can create wonderful dashboards, right? And you can use that's the best part of Dynatrace, right? So please use this link. You can give you this link. Create and edit Dynatrace dashboards. Popular link. Everyone who's working on Dynatrace, I have worked in one of my companies, so I know you have to instrument the JVM. That's what you should do, and you can capture all the metrics at the infrastructure level, at the process level. Everything you can capture. Please go over that link. It can also capture the container metrics as well. Yeah. Any more questions, guys? Okay. So thank you everyone for connecting. I hope to see you on Monday, right? So we'll be starting the full-fledged from day one on Monday, right? We'll start from very basic, what is cloud, and we'll go about that, right? If not, people are interested, I'll talk about Linux as well. So I'm going to take a vote once. You'll be notified. You're creating a new group in WhatsApp, right? So we'll be asking. I'll be asking whether you want to start with Linux or AWS. So yeah, depending on that, I'm going to take a call and we're going to continue. Right. So that's all for today, guys. So thank you so much. We're going to meet on Monday next time. Thank you.
Thank you.